Hello, I'm Dr. Warren. Today I want to go through a very important question that I get in the clinic, which is how do you kill Lyme, or what do you do to kill Lyme? This is probably the first or second most common question that I get, right behind when will I feel better, doc? But I think this is a very important thing to answer when we're trying to deal with Lyme because it's a bacteria. And I think there's an inherent assumption that, well, can we just take an antibiotic for a couple weeks, kill it, and it'll all be better and all go away? And unfortunately, once it's gone chronic, that doesn't really work that way. So let me go through here what we do once it's gone chronic, and I'll try to highlight some good options, some better options. I'll just tell you my experience and how I came to be using the things that I now use in the clinic. I'll also go through some studies on why I use some of the things used in the clinic, because there's now studies backing up some things we do, which is terrific. And here we go. But let's try to answer this question: how do you kill Lyme? And specifically, we're trying to answer how we kill Lyme when it's chronic or it's persistent. All right, so this is a slide I'll just pull up, and you feel free to pause the video and just read through the slide if you want. But this is a wordy slide, but it does show kind of a comprehensive view of what we're trying to do with a patient who has Lyme disease, or if you have Lyme and are trying to heal from it. So I want to highlight that we're really talking about step 1A here, which is what we use to kill Lyme, particularly when it's in the stationary phase versus the active phase. We'll talk about that in a second. I have a picture, I have a study to show you, but I'm trying to break the idea that in chronic Lyme, it doesn't work that we just take an antibiotic and you're cured. It just doesn't work that way. It does work that way when you have acute Lyme. If you catch it right away, you got bit last weekend camping, and you have a bullseye rash, you can really go into the doctor, and if you catch it right away, the antibiotics can work like magic. But once it's gone chronic, once we've had it for 2-3 months or years or decades, it just doesn't work like that anymore. The other thing I do want to highlight is that 93% of people who are chronically sick with Lyme is going on long-term, meaning anything longer than about 2-3 months is considered long-term. 93% of those people have co-infections. So although we're just talking about Lyme today, know that the extreme vast majority of you who have chronic Lyme have it with the co-infections. You have it with BART, or with Babesia, or with Anaplasma, or with Powassan, or something. There's a combination of infections that these ticks carry, and it's the combination that's keeping you sick. Just a quick timeline for me, if you don't know our story, is that in about 2010, my wife became very sick with what later we found to be Lyme. And I ran bad testing and really missed what it was for several years. I tried so many things to fix my wife. We were going to seminars. I think I went to stuff like 27 weeks in a row, where my wife was like, can you just stay home this weekend? But we were reading books, talking to doctors, running tests, trying to figure out what on earth we could do to help her, heal and recover and feel. Now, in the process of this, I learned so much as we did deep dives into immunology, into testing, into diagnostics, into genetics, into detoxification. We learned so much that has helped me in my career. Now, as I look back, some of it was able to help my wife, some of it helped people in my clinic, but I kept looking till I had an answer. And in 2013, we finally figured out that this was Lyme with the help of a dear friend. Helped open my eyes to this problem. And being from Minnesota, it's a huge issue in Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Midwest. So this has been a growing part of our clinic, and I'll share some things too. It's kind of taken over my whole life. It was fun to find, and it felt like it was the end of a journey finding something, but also it was the beginning of a new journey in that now we had to learn how to heal and recover from Lyme. One of the first things that happened was I took the same strategy I'd been doing. I started getting the team together. We started, going to seminars. We started reading books. I started asking doctors for protocols. And, because I am a chiropractor and I was used to the seminar world, and I'm social enough, but also forward enough, I had access to so many, speakers, whether it was going to seminars, sitting under there, teaching, talking to them, talking to their office directors, shadowing them. I had access to people that a normal person just does not have access to. And then I had the ability not only to do things on my wife, but also to test and measure and compare things with people in the clinic. And so as we learned more about Lyme and did more Lyme in the clinic, we learned at a pretty rapid pace. And in the process, we saw docs who did antibiotics, who did oral, who did IV, docs who did ozone, docs who did herbals, docs who did homeopathics. I really looked and searched for anyone who was doing Lyme and what they were doing and how they were getting success in any method available. The thing I want to kind of bring up is, as soon as you find out Lyme's a bacteria, the obvious choice is, well, can I just take an antibiotic and this will all be over? And what I quickly found out was, yes, there's this acute Lyme where you went camping last week, you got bit, you got a rash, you take antibiotic, it's just doxycycline, just one antibiotic most of the time, 2 to 4 weeks, and it's over. It's magic. It's like super simple. But once I was dealing with chronic Lyme, that was not what doctors were doing. And doctors who were treating chronic Lyme were using often 1 to 2 years of 3 to 4 antibiotics at a time. And they were kind of moving the antibiotics around slowly over time. But it was high dose antibiotic protocols for long periods of time. And that was the vast majority of what these docs who I was going around looking who were doing antibiotics were using. And then we use a variety of herbs or nutraceuticals to try and help balance the protocol and detox and these things. Some used more than others, but the question that I had that I think you should have is, well, antibiotics work so well on so many bugs. Why is Lyme different? Why is Lyme so much harder to kill that it's not a 10-week course of amoxicillin like strep throat is? Or, what's so different that this seems so hard? Like, why are the Lyme bugs so resistant? And I knew this conceptually from answers to be, well, it's stationary phase bacteria and it's biofilms and they're resistant to antibiotics. But it wasn't until 2019 that a study came that really showed a picture that kind of clicked for me. So I'll show this to you. They took pictures of Lyme in the microscope, and I want to show you A, B, and C. This is Lyme. It's all Lyme. A is Lyme, B is Lyme, C is Lyme. And you're going to notice, well, that looks really different. How can it be the same thing? It's Lyme in different forms. And the short version is when Lyme's in A, the normal form, what's called the log phase, doxycycline or the antibiotic works extremely well. And when it's in B and C, it doesn't. And a variety of antibiotics and combination of antibiotics don't work. B and C is the biofilm form and a stationary form. Once Lyme has entered this stage, it's extremely more resistant to antibiotics. And that's what you see in the graph. The red line represents them trying to kill Lyme when it's in that log phase. And you see they're measuring how much is left alive. That's the left column. It says residual viability. And the red one is when it's in the log phase. You see the low bar, which means the antibiotic is effective. And then you see the purple and green bars, which is when it's in the biofilm form or the stationary phase or the microcolony. And the bars were really high, indicating that the antibiotics were not able to kill the bug. It's still there. It's still alive. And both the graph and the picture was this idea that, look, once Lyme has entered that microcolony phase, which people call biofilm, and the stationary phase, it's very resistant. And that's why if you're going to use antibiotics, you need multiple antibiotics at high doses, usually to punch through those problems. Now, we're going to see in a little bit, I think there's a better choice. But because Lyme is in this chronic stage, it is difficult to do with antibiotics. Not impossible, but it is certainly a way that has a lot of side effects, something I want to talk about next. So as I started my journey trying to help my wife and starting to help people with Lyme in the clinic, I, as a chiropractor, naturally have a group of people who are going to be more naturally minded. And I have some people who want to do all natural, no drugs. And I have some people who are comfortable doing drugs, but want to do some nutritional things right alongside it to try to make it go better. This kind of creates two groups in my clinic that are fairly distinct. So some people doing, nutritional herbal therapies with antibiotics, and some people just doing the nutritional herbal therapies and they don't want to do with antibiotics. Maybe they've already done them and don't want to do more. That's actually a very, very common. The problem I got into is especially I saw more and more neurological Lyme, when you deal with the side effects of high dose antibiotics, we started to see more fatigue, more pain, more neurological problems, from anxiety to heart problems to neuropathy. And these were difficult. It was just practically a very dramatic time in my practices. I felt like I was always putting out fires and things were just really hard. You get people better, but it was a very hard road. If I can talk to you about those, 5-6 years, that's the way we were doing things. Now, after 5-6 years, so we started about 2013. My wife was better somewhere around 15, as we were working on things. And I looked back around 2018 and started to go, gosh, my people who are only doing the herbals and nutrition were doing better than the people who were doing the antibiotics. It still took about the same amount of time 6 to 18 months, 1 to 2 years, just depending on how you wanted to kind of quantify it. But that was how long the antibiotic people were really taking when it came down to it. When I looked at it, the people without the antibiotics had less side effects. They felt better throughout the program. They could participate in their life better. You could work better. You could be a dad, be a mom, do your hobbies better. You could do family events better. It was smoother. And then the kicker for me was when I looked at the recurrence rate. My recurrence rate on people who had done more antibiotics was higher, meaning it came back. So I love my work, but I never want to do it twice. And so having that low recurrence rate with my nutritional people also was kind of this kicker that we were like, okay, I originally had in the clinic about a 50-50 split. And after about 5-6 years of doing that, we started to go, okay, we're going to move towards this more nutrition model and only use antibiotics on people that I think it's going to be extremely effective on. So we have some criteria on people we will, but right now it's about 10% of people will do antibiotics alongside, but about 90% of people we're going to do it all herbally, and I'll run you through the studies on that. I made that decision about 2017 or 18. That's about the time when we started looking, and I realized that about 70% of my patients were Lyme disease patients. And so over the last 5 years, this had really taken over my clinic. I do want to highlight that at least half the people that I've worked with have already done a significant amount of antibiotics. They don't want to do more antibiotics than they've done. They've maybe done them for years, some people for a decade or more. And they're trying to make it not recur or trying to solve it without that because they've done it and the side effects were too harsh. This is, a picture of my lovely daughter, Gabriella, and this is my wife, Anne. And, this is, a child that we weren't sure we were going to have. When my wife was sick, she was incapacitated. I think it was somewhere around 15. She was doing significantly better because Gabriella was born in 16. I'll share another picture. This is from last summer. This is us by the Bluebells down in Texas. And, my wife's healthy enough to travel, and we have 4 kids, and she's homeschooling, and we can take trips to ice cream shops and, just live life, right? Just live life. And my wife and I saw our dreams of a family and dreams of what life could be like threatened by, serious health problems. It is such a privilege now to have the children, have the health to enjoy the children, have the health to enjoy each other and do things. And that's what I hope for you, is that you can also have this. So let me run you through the herbs and the things that we use for our protocol. Once again, this is the kill phase. So in 2013, I said, well, what should I use to help kill Lyme? And I had some friends recommend some things to me, and we read lots of protocol books. And I basically started with these 3 herbs: oregano, garlic, and wormwood. Really, because of all the different killing options for Lyme, these are the 3 I really already had in the clinic. So I just had to start using it. I didn't have to go get new supplies of stuff. Now that grew over time as we tried certain things, tried to test and measure what worked. And then in 2017 through 20, we started getting corroborating studies from Johns Hopkins. There was a few changes once these studies come out, but really they were testing some of the common herbal strategies that Lyme doctors across the country were working, trying to verify some of their validity. And these are some of the studies. So the 2017 study, amazingly, 23 different essential oils beat the persister drug dapsone. And I love this one. It said, among them, oregano and cinnamon demonstrated the best activity shown by complete eradication of the stationary phase Borrelia burgdorferi, even at a very low concentration. I like those words. Complete eradication sounds wonderful. In these studies, they compared doxycycline, ciprofloxacin, and dapsone. And dapsone is a very harsh, very strong persister drug with lots of side effects, and you have these herbals beating it. And that's an amazing, amazing thing for things that are so safe and can be effective and are good for you anyway. We were using oregano by this point. We were using clove by this point. I was not using cinnamon until after this study came out. We had cinnamon in the clinic for nutritional purposes for healthy blood sugar, but I was not using it in Lyme protocol. So when this came out, that was one of the additions. The 2018 study, once again, we're trying to kill the persistent form of Lyme, and it found garlic was the best activity of any of the herbs. Once again, 10 of these 30 herbs stand out as having remarkable activity, but garlic was the number 1. Played around with a few of the other ones, but really the all-star from this study that we use is garlic, and it's been terrific. I had to go through some things where I was using a garlic that didn't work right, had to get a slow release one. We've used a couple different garlics, a couple different oreganos to find which one we think works the best, with the least side effects, the least heartburn, the least diarrhea, the least nausea, all those kinds of things. So you still, once you know oregano, then it's like, well, hang on, I need to still work through which ones might work best and smoothest. Now, the 2020 study, what I want to highlight is they came up with 6 or 7 more herbs that we used: cryptolepis, skullcap, black walnut, Japanese knotweed, cat's claw, and wormwood. So once again, this was not a huge surprise in that these were all herbs we were kind of using. The only real curveball in this was cryptolepis is traditionally thought of as a babesia remedy, which is one of the co-infections. And the surprise of this study was that crypto was so effective against Lyme, whereas previously we had thought it was only effective against babesia. This study really highlighted that crypto was effective against Lyme as well. What this comes down to is this is my list that I typically work off as I think the top herbal choices for killing Lyme. They are oregano, clove, cinnamon, garlic, crypto, Japanese knotweed, and Chinese skullcap. This is a huge part of what we're doing in the clinic to help people recover from chronic Lyme. But please know, it is part of a complete program, and don't think we can just take one of those and it'll magically kill it. You're still having to deal with co-infections, still having to do with Herx things, still having to boost the immune system, still having to do all these other pieces. But the stuff that is trying to kill Lyme is not about the active phase, it's about those stationary chronic phases, about those biofilm phases. And your best choice, in my opinion, when you're trying to kill that is the herbs, and they kind of back up the data in that it takes high dose multiple antibiotics to kill it in that phase. And there are downsides to doing long-term high dose antibiotic therapy. Herbs are a better choice to get at it, more effective when it's in that form. And that's the form we care about when you're in chronic mode, when it's lasted months to years to decades. I'm Dr. Warren. I hope you found this helpful in your journey towards healing from Lyme. Thank you.